What did it cost you to fill your tank here?
It was around $100 today. Yeah, too much.
Drivers are having to shell out more and more every day to fill their tanks.
Now it's probably around 150, 160. Before it was maybe $100.
Aaron Gottlieb owns a landscaping business. Filling up the company truck is starting to eat away at his profits.
Now I have to charge more people more money because of the expenses that I have to take.
Not every business can jack up their rates to make up for their losses.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Martinez, and today I'm going to tell you about something the mainstream media has completely ignored. I want you to sit down in front of your screen and think about this. Did you go to the gas station yesterday to fill up? Did you feel that shock when you looked at that digital display? Nearly $4 a gallon. $4. But this isn't just a price tag, folks. This is the direct result of a major decision made by the White House, perhaps the most controversial war decision of this century. And right now, the Trump administration is telling you something very specific. You just deal with it. We'll handle it. I don't know if they can really handle it, but the public is living through a scenario they didn't want. But here's the question I'm asking you. What if they can't handle it? February 28th, 2026, the US and Israel launched a military operation against Iran called Operation Epic Fury. And ever since that day, global energy markets have been under fire in the truest sense of the word. In less than 3 weeks, crude oil prices have risen by 50%. Brent crude oil has surged past $100 for the first time since 2022, a staggering rise, and even spiked to $119 at times. The average gas price has risen from approximately $3 on February 28th to $3.89 as of today. That's an increase of over 90 cents per gallon packed into just 20 days. But here's what I'm going to tell you today. It's not just about these numbers, because behind these numbers lies a panic unfolding behind closed doors. A what if it's stuck? What will we do? Panic. And with every passing hour, the Trump administration's room to maneuver in resolving this crisis is narrowing a bit more. Now, I'm going to tell you the whole story from start to finish. News bulletins show you maps and numbers. I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Every major drama has a pivotal moment. The pivotal moment in this story is the name of a 54-kilometer wide stretch of water, the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway connecting the Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and is the only route for Gulf oil producers to reach the open ocean. About 130 tankers pass through this strait every month. This accounted for roughly one-fifth of the world's crude oil and natural gas supply. Now consider this. 20% of the global energy system flows through this 54-kilometer-long waterway, and that waterway is now officially closed. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards effectively blockaded the strait as soon as the operation began. A senior IRGC advisor stated, "The strait is closed. If anyone tries to pass, the Revolutionary Guards heroes will set those ships ablaze." He also added that they would not allow a single drop of oil to leave the region and that oil prices would soon reach $200. This was not a threat. It was the start of an operation. The number of tankers passing through the strait has dropped from approximately 50 per day before the war to single-digit figures, or even zero in recent weeks. The world's lifeline has been choked off. And without opening this strait, bringing energy prices back to normal is mathematically impossible. But now a far more complex actor is entering the scene: Israel. Israel's unilateral move and the global shockwave. Israel's solo move and the global shockwave, March 19th, 2026. In the early hours of the morning, crimson flames began rising over the Middle East. Israel launched a massive attack on Iran's largest gas field in the world, South Pars. This move triggered Tehran to retaliate against critical energy facilities across the Gulf Arab states. And this attack became a massive headache for the White House alone. Why? Because Trump's allies, the Arab states in the Gulf, Europe, and even Japan, were outraged by this move. Qatar was furious with Iran, but also with the US and Israel. It was seeing that this blindly waged war was setting its own critical infrastructure ablaze. The cost of the attack was felt immediately. Following the South Pars attack, Brent crude briefly surpassed the $119 mark. Americans, meanwhile, felt the pain at the pump. The average price per gallon reached $3.88. And at that very moment, the world received its most critical piece of news. Iran struck Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city, one of the world's largest LNG, liquefied natural gas production centers, in retaliation. Tehran launched an attack on Qatar's main LNG production facility in response to Israel's bombing of South Pars. One analyst put it very clearly. This war is now targeting the infrastructure of the global energy system. Let's pause here and really understand what's happening. There are three critical energy corridors in the world: the Strait of Hormuz, the South Pars gas field, and the Ras Laffan facilities. Right now, all three are either closed, damaged, or under threat. This is the biggest energy crisis since the oil embargo of the 1970s. The chasm between Trump's promises and reality. Now stop for a minute and ask yourself, didn't Trump know all this? Well, let's recall what he said. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt stated, "Once the national security objectives of Operation Epic Fury are fully achieved, Americans will see oil and gas prices drop rapidly. They might even fall below pre-operation levels." Energy Secretary Chris Wright, however, said relief would come within weeks, not months. Fine. But what do analysts say? The Trump administration implemented a series of measures to mitigate the rise in oil prices caused by Iran. However, prices stubbornly remained high. As the war continued, it became clear that neither the U.S. nor any other government could provide real relief in the form of lower energy prices before ending the conflict. In other words, this is a crisis that Trump cannot turn around with economic policy. He cannot backtrack as he did in tariff crises, because what is driving prices up is not economic policy, but the reality of a war. The war will reduce global oil supply by approximately 8 million barrels per day, and government reserves can provide an additional supply of about 3 million barrels per day. So these reserves cannot even fill half of the gap created by the war. This is a mathematical fact, not emotional, not political, mathematical. The pain at the pump, the people behind the numbers. Let's step away from the numbers for a moment because there are real people behind these numbers. The average gas price nationwide rose from just under $3 per gallon at the end of February to approximately $3.89 as of March 19th, a total increase of about 90 cents, including a sharp jump of over 30 cents in just the past few days. Arizona 117, Kentucky 107, and Utah 104 are among the states where the increase has been felt most acutely, but no region has been spared this rise. Even in the Northeast, New Jersey saw an increase of 87 cents and New York 73 cents. And it's not just gasoline. For American families, the impact of the war won't be a single price hike, but a series of successive shocks hitting their wallets at every turn. Those looking to book flights for summer vacation will find that jet fuel prices have risen by 85% since operations began. As for grocery store shelves, rising diesel prices will first increase the costs of the trucks, trains, and tractors that transport food from farm to shelf. And then, months later, rising fertilizer prices will ripple through the agricultural supply chain. This is not a short-term pain. It is an economic earthquake that American households will face in the coming months. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, empty coffers, high stakes. And now, we come to the White House's biggest dilemma. If an energy crisis erupts, the U.S.'s biggest trump card is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But what's in that reserve right now? During the run-up to the war, and despite the easily foreseeable impact on energy prices, the Trump administration neglected to replenish the country's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This has left the economy even more vulnerable to supply shocks. Now, an international release of reserves has been initiated under the coordination of the IEA. Under the coordination of the Paris-based International Energy Agency, Asian countries have begun immediately releasing their emergency oil reserves, while countries in the US and Europe will begin releasing their stocks by the end of March. But while this is a significant gesture, These reserves can provide only about 3 million barrels of additional supply per day, yet the daily shortfall caused by the war is 8 million barrels. In other words, government reserves aren't even capable of covering more than half of the war's shortfall. The White House is currently discussing easing sanctions on Russia to release additional Russian oil into the market, and even releasing oil from Iranian tankers waiting off the coast. Just think about that for a moment. Using Iranian oil against Iran. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said exactly that. Essentially, while we continue this campaign, we will use Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep prices down over the next 10-14 days. Read that sentence again. This isn't a strategy. It's an admission that options have run out. Trump's red line and the 20 times harder threat. Amid all this chaos, what is Trump doing? On one hand, he's trying to put out the fire. On the other, he's trying to send a message of resolve. In an interview with CBS News, Trump said he was considering taking over the Strait of Hormuz. He also declared that if Iran does anything to block oil flow through the strait, they will be struck 20 times harder than they've ever been hit before, adding that he will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to halt global oil supplies. This statement is strong, but the markets did not interpret it as a confirmed outcome. They interpreted it as a threat of a potential confrontation. And this distinction is critical, because the same Trump, on one hand, says the war will end very soon. On the other hand, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth states that the war will not end until the enemy is completely and decisively defeated. These two voices are coming from the same administration. The market saw this contradiction. Trump's statement that the war was very much over calmed the markets. However, he later appeared to soften these remarks with contradictory statements. Still, investors remained hopeful about options to restore tanker passage through the strait, and this contradiction is resonating within the Republican camp as well. The Republicans' dilemma. Biden's gas price criticism is back now. The political landscape is reaching a truly interesting point, because for years, Republicans have relentlessly criticized the Biden administration for rising prices at the pump. The energy independence message was a cornerstone of Trump's campaign. One of his campaign promises was gas under $2 a gallon. Now it's $3.89 per gallon. Given that Republicans have harshly criticized former President Joe Biden over rising prices at the pump, the energy price hike caused by the Iran conflict risks undermining the party's affordability message ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Some Republican senators are still insisting, with conviction, that this is temporary. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said, "When you eliminate Iran, the world will be a more stable place and energy supply will increase." But this argument offers little comfort to an American family paying 90 cents more at the pump today. Meanwhile, Democrats aren't missing this opportunity. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wrote, "Donald Trump's war has sent gas prices through the roof." Maine Senator Angus King commented, "I wish the administration had thought about this before starting this unnecessary war." So the political picture is this. Republicans say this is temporary. Democrats say this could have been prevented, and the American family is paying a few dollars more every day in the midst of this debate. To understand the scale of this crisis, let's look at what Wall Street and the world's energy giants are saying. Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil exporter, warned of catastrophic consequences if flows through the strait do not resume. Aramco CEO Amin Nasser stated, "We've experienced disruptions in the past, but this is by far the biggest crisis the region's oil and gas sector has ever faced," and emphasized that global stockpiles are at their lowest level in 5 years. This is no small local crisis. The economic impact of the war, including supply shortages, high oil prices, currency volatility, and, should disruptions persist, projections of global inflation, recession, and stagflation, is being described as the worst since at least the 1970s. And this is precisely where the White House must consider the 2026 midterm elections. In American political history, this rule is virtually unbreakable. High prices at the pump cost the ruling party votes, always. No exceptions. This is a stark reality that goes beyond ideology. It hits people in the wallet. After the Democrats secured victories on their cost of living platforms in November, Trump signaled that he was taking affordability seriously. However, these policies have not yet lowered costs for Americans, and the situation in Iran has made matters even worse. Now, let's put all the pieces together. Because, in my view, the most critical truth of this story is this crisis cannot be resolved by a shift in political rhetoric. Energy expert Dan Pickering summarized the situation. Words won't bring oil prices back to normal. The strait is the key to a return to normalcy. You can't return to normal when 15 million barrels a day are stuck in a bottleneck and have been removed from the market. And what does it take to open the strait? U.S. military forces need to clear Iran's naval forces and the minefields it has laid. This isn't something that will happen overnight. Analysts believe it will take at least a month, and possibly much longer, for the strait to fully reopen and for production in the region to return to normal. This means high oil prices could persist for some time, and since pump prices tend to fall more slowly than oil prices, they could remain high for much longer. On top of that, there's the rocket and feather phenomenon. When crude oil costs rise, pump prices shoot up like a rocket, but they come down as slowly as a feather. This happened after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and following the 2005 Katrina hurricane. In both cases, gas prices spiked sharply but took months to fully recede. So here's the reality. Even if the Strait of Hormuz were to open, it could take months for Americans to feel any relief in gas prices. At this point, there's something I need to ask you. If you're reading this and I'm sharing with you the part of these analyses you wouldn't see just in the headlines, right at this very moment, is there a better time to subscribe? Click the subscribe button. Learn about the next seismic development directly from my channel, because this story isn't over. Closing. Justice is slow, but math is fast. Now consider this. Trump promised to eliminate Iran's nuclear weapons capability through Operation Epic Fury, reshape the Middle East, and simultaneously deliver cheap gas to Americans. Are all three possible at the same time? Highly respected analysts, economists, and energy experts all give the same answer to this question. Without opening the strait, this energy crisis cannot be resolved. The strait cannot be opened without a military operation, and a military operation takes time. This is not a political opinion. It is a reality that operates like a law of physics. According to Bloomberg's latest report, when Trump stated that he was considering gradually reducing U.S. military efforts, Brent crude oil dropped from above $112 to $108. In other words, the markets are scrutinizing every statement and every signal with great care, because this strait issue is affecting the world so closely. The noose is tightening, options are dwindling, and with each passing day, every tanker unable to pass through the Strait of Hormuz adds a little more to American families' bills. They say justice moves slowly, but in this crisis, the math is working very quickly. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think? Is the economic cost of this war worth the long-term security gains? Or has the Trump administration fallen into a trap it never considered before it began? Let me know in the comments. And what do you think is the real reason behind this war? It's a subtle question, one not everyone can answer. And if you want to see this kind of analysis and perspectives the media ignores, subscribing is free. Turn on notifications. Let's watch the next big development together. I'm Joe Martinez. See you soon.